Hello, hello, hello. Today I am here with Shelby, and we are talking about believing in yourself and enjoying the journey. This is going to be an awesome conversation. For those of you that don't know me, I am Sabrina Victoria, your host of her talk show. If you have not already subscribed, girl, get on that. These podcasts are guaranteed to have you thinking differently about life. Let's jump right in.
Get ready, because today's guest is about to change the way you view your world. This is Her Talk Show, hosted by Sabrina Victoria.
Live, welcome. And if you are here on the replay, make sure you hashtag replay wherever you're at so we can send you some love. I have had over 500 women. I'm going to start saying close to 600 on this stage, and we are adding another one to the list today. Shelby. She is a true lover of life. Finding yoga in college expanded her perception of what is possible in life, and now she can't imagine living without it. Upon being laid off from her full-time job in the height of the pandemic, girl, I get you, Shelby trusted that it was divine redirection. She now teaches yoga full-time, published a book of poetry, and hand makes mala jewelry infused with intention. Yes, girl. Shelby believes in equal trust in her own capabilities, and the universe is a recipe for a life of fulfillment, excitement, success, and joy. Welcome, lady.
It's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Sabrina.
Yes, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to relax, hang out, and talk about all the things. There's so many different directions we can take this in. So I'm so excited to just kind of see where this goes. You are bringing to us, to start off, exalted expression. Girl, what does this mean?
To me, exalted expression is when you are operating from your higher self, when you are feeling aligned with your purpose, that coupled with feeling confident and like a sense of belonging. So you feel like you can bring your full self to any situation. Yeah, to me, exalted expression is being aligned with your purpose, knowing that you're aligned with your purpose, and knowing that wherever you are is where you're meant to be.
Beautiful. Tell us a story of you exalting your expression.
Sure. I feel exalted in my expression, honestly, when I am teaching yoga. When I started teaching yoga, I was only teaching once a week, and I was working a full-time job that I did not feel exalted in my expression in. I felt quite stifled and a little misunderstood and a little just not on the path. And I knew that when I was teaching yoga, the sense of presence that I felt and the sense of I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing that I felt, it made me realize that that's what I wanted to do more of. But I was fearful of, kind of making that leap. I was given that leap, which we'll get to. But yeah, when I'm teaching yoga, I feel exalted. I feel like I'm guiding from a place of, knowing. And my classes, I aim to really make everyone feel welcomed and invited. Like no one gets turned away. No one is in the wrong class or in the wrong body. And just being able to provide an environment where like people feel seen and welcomed makes me also feel like I'm expressing my highest self by allowing people to kind of show up as theirs as well. And more recently, when I'm reading my poetry as well, which at first was super scary. You and I met at an open mic, and I think at that one, I was kind of already getting a little more comfortable with it. But the first few open mics I did, I was physically shaking. Like as I read my poetry, like if you touched me, I was shaking. But now I feel like I've started to develop my voice and really kind of hone how I want the delivery of the poems to be. And it feels really, really good.
That's awesome. Can you talk a little bit about this? Because I think that this thing that you're talking about, as far as the nervousness and shaking, is the thing that keeps people from doing ultimately what they want to be doing. You know, like they feel that fear and then they just back off and they never do it again. But yet you're saying, I did it, and then I did it, and then I did it, I did it, and now it feels way better. So can you talk a little bit about your journey?
Yeah, that's so true. I feel like it's really easy to kind of back out of something when we feel that fear creeping in. Um, and there's like some saying out there that essentially indicates that like when you feel a little bit fearful, it usually means you're onto something. And like doing the things that you're afraid of is that's where the growth is. Like if you do the things that make you a little uncomfortable, obviously like fear is there for a reason, like from a primal sense, like we need fear if like we're being chased by an animal or something. So there are useful moments of fear, but when it's just like, oh, I'm afraid of being perceived, or I'm afraid that what I have to share maybe is not going to resonate, or whatever it is, whatever the story is that you're running, it's best to just work through that fear. For a while, I'd been writing poetry, and originally started sharing it on like a super private social media page with like a fake name that like no one knew it was me. Um, and then I started to feel like, maybe I should try to get published. And I thought that that meant, submitting to journals and getting rejected over and over again. And so I just like wouldn't submit because I was like, I don't feel like getting rejected. And like doing this whole process. And then one day I was like, why don't you just make a book like on your own? And it is a little scary because a lot of my poems are very vulnerable, and a lot of them, I mean, some of them are kind of like a fiction story, but most of them are really derived from like my experiences. And it can be scary to just like put yourself out there and have people know that it's you. Um, but I feel like the people who are doing the things that they're afraid of and doing the things that make people talk or like make people think like are the people that are making the biggest impact. And fear can also just be like in your head, and like everything in life is about perception and decision making, and you can literally just one day make the decision to be like, I'm scared, but I'm going to do it anyway. And like I apply that to so much in my life. I'm a really adventurous person too. Like I'm thinking back to the other night, I was on my skateboard and I was about to go down like this really big hill, and I was like, I'm scared, and then I just like went, because it's like, obviously, like that is skill dependent. Don't get on the longboard and go downhill if you've never been on one before. You might fall. But like if you know that you're prepared and you know that your skill, like risk factor is skill dependent. So what's risky for you might not be risky for me. What's risky for me might not be risky for you. And so deep down, I think we really know what we're capable of. There's just a lot of gunk and stories that get in the way. And it's so easy to like tell ourselves, I'm not capable or I can't do it. And that mindset can be pretty common. I feel like, especially like the older we get and the further along on a path that we're not meant to be on, we start to almost get comfortable in the place that we're really not even supposed to be. So I think if you can kind of just like get rid of those stories and believe in your capability, then fear becomes a lot easier to walk through, and it doesn't necessarily completely disappear. You just learn how to do the thing anyway.
Yes. And I love you talking about how not everyone's fear is different, because I think that's a huge component. I think sometimes it's not even fear. It's like we think that we should be fearful, therefore we're fearful.
Yeah.
But until you do it yourself, then you'll know what your level of fear is, and then do it anyways.
Yeah. No, it's true. Like sometimes it's like society deems this as potentially like something fear inducing, but like is that my belief? And that can be like other things too besides fear. Like there's a lot of um there's just a lot of, I guess, experiences that you can look at through the lens of someone else's eyes, or you can choose to like perceive it in a different way. And I'm a big like perspective person, and like I always say, like, situations are not inherently bad or good, it's just how you look at it. So like, we don't have to be miserable if we don't want to. I actually just read something recently, someone I follow on Instagram, and she was talking about how like she was on this beautiful trip. She's in paradise. She's with the love of her life, but she was feeling miserable for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe she was sick. I don't know what it was. But she was like, if I can be miserable in paradise, then I can be joyful in the difficulty. And yeah, I think like reality exists totally in our head. Like, things just are. They don't have a meaning until we assign it meaning. So like, if something goes wrong, or maybe rather not as planned, you can either like wallow in that and be like, oh my gosh, it's not going how I thought it was. This sucks. This is horrible. Or you can be like, all right, we're going to go this way now and we're going to figure it out. And it's like, it's not easy, but it's simple.
Definitely. How have you yourself, you talked about stepping into fear several times in your life. Is that something that's just innately in you, or did you kind of slowly learn that over time? Did you have a role model? How did you learn to start stepping into fear?
What comes to mind is, so back in high school, and this is like not even that big of a deal, but I feel like it actually kind of was like under the surface. So my parents got divorced, whatever, that happens to 50% of people. And then when my mom was getting remarried, I had to move and switch high schools in the middle of high school. And that like kind of was my first time where I was like, I had to be like, this sucks, but like, I'm going to try to make it not suck. Because at 16, like, your whole life is your friends. Like, there's a book, I forget what the book is called, but it gives a quote for each age of your life. And the quote for when you're 16, it's like, at 16, you know what it means to suffer, but you don't know that other people suffer too. So it's like the whole world like revolves around you. And I felt like my world was crumbling down. And I went to this new school where I didn't know a single person, not one. And this was also like I came from a huge public school, and this was a private school where everyone knew each other. They'd been going to school together since kindergarten, maybe first grade. And I'm coming in 11th grade. And I had to just like walk into the cafeteria and be like, hey, can I sit with you? And like start trying to make new friends. And it worked out. It was fine. And some of those friends are still in my life to this day. So I feel like, and I have an older brother, and I remember at that time he was telling me like, Shelby, I know that this is hard right now, but like, this is going to prepare you for life, because you're going to have to walk into a lot of situations where you're the fish out of water, and like, you got to navigate. And yeah. And then like the bigger moment of that was, like I had mentioned, post-college, I was working a full-time job that I didn't enjoy. I was teaching yoga once a week, knowing that that was what I did enjoy, but I was scared to like take the leap and try to make that work. And then when the pandemic hit and we started working from home, I was left with more time to kind of dream, I guess. And I was like, all right, maybe I'll try to start posting a little on social media about yoga, and maybe I'll start up another class. And I ended up renting a yoga studio indoors in the pandemic. We're all masked up, and I'm paying to rent this yoga studio. I have no following. No one knows who I am. No one wants to do yoga with me, but I'm like, yeah, I'm going to rent this studio and start a class. And I make that decision, and literally 2 weeks later, I get laid off from my full-time job, which is like crazy, because it was like mentally I'd already done this little shift. I'd already like dipped my toe in the waters of where I wanted to be. And then the universe was like, here you go, full send, better figure it out. You don't have a job now. And I wasn't scared though. And I don't know if it was the fact that it was the pandemic and so many people were also going through this. I knew so many people were getting laid off, but also it was just like, I was like, I get it. Like, I know what I'm supposed to do. I got laid off in the morning, and I took that day to just like breathe. I like went for a walk. I called my mom and just, let that news sink in. And then the very next day I started going to yoga studios and taking classes and being like, hey, I'm a yoga teacher. I'm looking for opportunities. And then I think it was like 3 days later, I started teaching virtual classes on Zoom and just like marketing it out to a following that I did not have, and a lot of people from, high school, college, whatever, like kind of started to unfollow me. But then people who wanted to be there started to follow me. And it was like scary because I wasn't making a lot of money, and I was used to having a steady paycheck. I was used to having even commissions. Like, it was a pretty good job, like a decent job that had a lot of potential that I was in. And now I'm like, basically money in is money out. Everything I'm making is like paying the bills, and I'm basically just like sustaining. And I was lucky that I had like a decent savings to where I wasn't like, oh my gosh, I'm literally underwater. But it was scary. I was like, is this going to work? Like, there was months of me like not really super profitable. And I just kept telling myself like the difference between success and failure is to keep going when others would give up. And there were plenty of times where the studio that I was renting, like I wouldn't get enough students to even cover rent. And so I would pay to teach yoga, and I'd come home like very defeated. But I was like, you just have to keep going. Like, this isn't going to be the story forever. And now I'm at a much more sustainable place. And like, I'm so happy that I stuck with it and that I didn't let the fear and the anxiety make me apply to another job that I didn't want. Oh, I think you're muted. Are you muted?
Thank you. I love that you are bringing up entrepreneurship, the lows and the highs of it. So often, especially now more than ever, we're fed this commentary of, be an entrepreneur and you get to make your own schedule and everything's fantastic and the money just starts rolling in and you can have $10,000 months, within a short amount of time. And then you get here and you hear crickets.
Yeah.
And you have to be your own cheerleader, and you have to be your own PR person. You have to be your own payroll person. You have to be your own social media manager, and you have to be your own, also do the work. And it becomes this whole whirlwind of a journey that you weren't necessarily expecting. And I think that it is only meant for those people, like you said, that just keep going through the thrashing of it, through the ridiculousness of it. And I, am in the point of my business now where I talk about being past that and still have ups and downs, right? There's still lulls in business where there are standstills sometimes, and then needing to navigate through that.
Yeah, it's always an ebb and a flow. And like, to your point of like, oh, be an entrepreneur, it's great. Like, it is great because you get to do what you want to do, and you get to work on your own pursuit rather than the pursuit of someone else. So like, it is great in that way because it is kind of inherently more aligned. I mean, I guess I shouldn't say that. Some people do have a job where they have a boss and they feel on purpose, and that's great.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, just because you're like, now you make all the rules, it's like, sure, I make all the rules, but like, if I just take the day off and if I just take a bunch of vacations, like there's no money coming in. So it's like, yes, I make the rules and I don't have to ask permission to like take time off or ask permission to like change up the way I want to brand myself or whatever it is. Like, I make the rules. However, like if I don't stay on track and stay on task, then like everything suffers, and it's up to me to make sure that doesn't happen. And it always is ebbing and flowing. I mean, I used to get so stressed if like a bunch of clients were out of town and all of a sudden I wasn't making money, or I wasn't making as much money as I anticipated for the week. But then I would also get so stressed if I had a bunch of clients coming in and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't have time to come up to breathe. I'm teaching 4 or 5 classes a day, running here, running there, going all over the place. And I would get stressed in the ebb and the flow. And now I'm at this place where I'm like, it's never going to be the same for too long.
Totally. Yeah.
Ride the wave.
Yeah.
So.
And that's the journey. That's like the story that you get to tell, right? It's like when people have a normal 9 to 5, they get to complain about their bosses, they get to complain about their coworkers, they get to talk about what they eat for lunch. As an entrepreneur, we get to talk about the ebb and the flow, the dry spells and the thunderstorms of all of it.
Yeah.
That's absolutely fantastic. One of the things that I would love for you to share with us is, what are like the top 2 things that you have had to learn to do as an entrepreneur that maybe you weren't so good at, maybe you didn't know you even had to be good at, but that you have learned how to do as an entrepreneur, and you're actually doing quite well with it now?
The first 2 things that are coming to mind are the business end of things, like marketing and being loud and proud about what I do. And then the other thing is setting boundaries, because I'm great at teaching yoga. I'm great at writing poetry. What was a more like learned, not coming naturally to me skill was going out into the world and telling everyone that I teach yoga and write poetry.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would lean into the kind of like, oh, I've got this class on Sundays, but like no pressure, or like, oh, I've got this book of poetry, but like no pressure, like, and you have to like learn to just tell people what you do and invite them in and figure out how to package it in a way that is inviting, in a way that makes people want to be part of what you're doing. And I really like to make a lot of my offerings accessible. That's important to me. So I have like a donation yoga class that, you just kind of show up and you pay whatever you want, or you don't pay. If, I always say if finances are tough, like we don't turn anyone away. And so I'm always marketing that class because it's kind of just like, this is the class for anyone. Anyone can come. It doesn't matter if you're on a budget or if abundance is flowing. It doesn't matter if you've done yoga before or you haven't. It's a very like all levels welcoming environment. And I'm really proud of it too, because all the people who come, it's at Veterans Park in Delray Beach. And so it's a outdoor park class. And I always joke, like the kind of people who come to yoga in the park, they're not assholes. They're just not. So it's like very, very welcoming. And it's so beautiful to see everyone like making friends and reconnecting with people they haven't seen in a long time, and spreading the word and inviting people. And then, me trying, like knowing that I'm good at the yoga part, but then also trying to maintain the business end of things and, making sure that I'm consistently marketing, making sure that the class is like what it is understood by people, and it like the message is clear and all of that. And then the boundaries thing, like knowing that like your students are your students, they're not your friends. I mean, some of them do become friends. I've definitely made friends from my yoga classes, but like being careful about like what you share, or just like, or how long you let people linger after a class, like, with your time, because your time is valuable. But at the same time, I would say I'm definitely still learning that one, because I am such a like open person, and I want to just hold space for you if you need space held. Like I'll talk to you after class as long as you need, as long as I don't have somewhere to be. Like I'm really good at wrapping it up now if I like literally have somewhere to be. But I do like for my students to see me as a full human and not just the yoga teacher. So the boundaries I have are kind of just like not sharing too much personal life details, but also being more than just like, I'm here to guide you in yoga. Like we can laugh, we can relate on things and that kind of thing. I'm trying to think of if there's, I know you said top two, but there's got to be more. um yeah, I think the biggest learning curve though was like the business end and like the taxes. Oh my gosh. Like when I was a W-2 employee, it was like you just get on TurboTax and it's 10 minutes later you're done. And now you've got to have like a system of organizing and like keep track of all these many 1099s that you have and all the cash and the Zells and the Venmos that you get and like trying to like be a business, like yes, it's yoga, but it is a business. And then also like being confident when it's time to raise your rates. Like that was really hard for me. That was something that I had to do twice now. So I actually just recently raised my private rates only by a little bit, only because like everything's gone up, and gas has gone up and um being confident in your own worth and like not underselling yourself and like with more trainings that you do, like you are more valuable because you have more knowledge. So yeah, I think that's definitely been the hardest part, but so necessary.
Yeah, for sure. Great story. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I think it's so important to be open and vulnerable about the journey because so many times, especially as entrepreneurs, we're like sitting by ourselves and we're just in our own muck, in our own darkness, trying to see the way through. And when you can hear that somebody else is dealing with the same stuff that you are, it makes it so much easier to be able to know that you're on the right path and that you're not the only one.
Yeah. Yeah, you always like you have to show up regardless of like what kind of day you've had or what's going on in your personal life. And so I've gotten pretty good at that. Like I've gone through, intense breakups or like just like big things in the family and like where behind the scenes I'm like crying, but then I get in front of class and it's like, okay, time to deliver a blissful experience. But you
Yes.
also learn like how your class changes in that way. Like if I'm going through a lot, I'm not going to give hands-on assists because I don't want to transmute that, If I'm going through a lot, maybe my class will be more about, just the asana, the poses and the alignment and less about the philosophy and the flowery language, which I do love to incorporate when I have, which is usually I have the space to be able to, but in those darker times, it's like, don't try to force a message if like you don't have it, because then it's not going to resonate. It's not going to come out. And you don't want to regurgitate something that you've heard someone else do. Like if you're in a dark time, like just keep it basic, and don't try to like, because then once you start, because you can start talking about some sort of message, but it's not going to feel neatly tied together if like it's not coming from the heart.
Yeah.
It really has to come from the heart.
Yeah. Or it will start intertwining your own story and then you end up getting teary-eyed and in the corner.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say though, for those darker times, like I am so grateful for poetry. Like the gift to be able to write is such a like transmutation of the experience because like now you've made art out of the darkness, out of the pain. You have this like piece of art that you can go back. And honestly, it like makes me feel so powerful. Like there's been times where something has not gone my way or I've been hurt by someone, or just like an experience has been difficult. And I write a poem and I'm like, wow, now I have power over it. And obviously not everyone is like a poet, but everyone can journal, everyone can brain dump. And like, that's really helpful. Like for anyone, if you are going through something, like, or even if you're not going through something, like, you'd be surprised what's going on in your head. I, like, started this practice of journaling every morning, 3 pages, um, and it was like, "Oh my gosh," like, I knew I was having all these thoughts, but, like, this is what they are, like, just to see it, it's really cathartic, and then if you do kind of regularly write, journal, whatever that looks like for you, you start to uncover hidden truths that you didn't really know were there, and, like, that happens to me in poetry for sure, but I just wanna make it relatable for, like, anybody if you're not a poet. Um, just the act of writing out your thoughts, like, you can start to see, like, oh, like, this is something in my life that I want to change, or like, this is something that I'm proud of, or like, whoa, I didn't know I felt this way about that until I started brain dumping it out. So it's really cool.
Yeah, the 3 pages a day. It's cool.
Yeah, it's actually per the there's a book called The Artist's Way, um,
Part of it.
and it is like a guidebook on creativity, and the authors believe that all humans are creative. You don't have to be an artist. Like, this book is designed to make an artist out of you, or to recover the hidden artist within you. And I moved through this book week by week. It's a 12-week book. We actually just finished it last week, and I had connected with a woman at a friend of mine's baby shower back in April, and she invited me to join, and it was all, like, older women, and I'm quite young, and I was definitely the youngest woman in the group, but it was really cool to see everyone's experience, and we would meet once a week, and part of the book was these morning pages, writing 3 pages every morning, and then each week also has these tasks for you to do, um, and it's great. I mean, if anyone is curious about it, The Artist's Way is a really beautiful way to just hone your own creative skills.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. Well, this has been a delight. I so appreciate you coming on and sharing some of your goodness with us. As we're closing up, can you share a little bit about how your confidence has shifted throughout your life's journey?
Yeah. I feel like with age, I get more and more confident, and I hope that's true for a lot of people because we just get more and more ourself, hopefully. Um, and I'm always kind of, my mindset is like evolution based, always trying to like be better. And like I think of like a spiral. It's like you spiral out, but really what you're doing is you're also getting closer to the core. And I think the more that you spiral out and put yourself out there and go to events and create community and be part of communities, like everyone is really a reflection. So if we just like, if we don't feel confident, that can sometimes make us want to like shelter ourselves and maybe not be exalted in our expression and not, you know, share what's inside because we're feeling like it's not worthy. But the more you can connect with other people, it's all reflections. The more you start to connect with yourself. And with teaching yoga and writing poetry, it's really like made me put myself out there a lot more and just become more myself. And I really love my message in all my classes to be like, you are worthy, you belong, you are welcome here. Like, this is like, you're worthy, like, end of story, you know? And that really, I think, helps people like feel a sense of self.
Yes. I want to thank you for that. I want to real fast say thank you to those of you that are watching live. I so appreciate you. Shelby and I both appreciate you being here and hanging out with us and listening to all the goodness that Shelby was sharing today. Shelby, can you do us a huge favor? I know that it's pretty obvious what you do, but can you give us a rundown of what specifically you do and who should be reaching out to you? Who do you help?
Sure. Yes. So I make these mala necklaces. They are infused with intention. I repeat an intention as I string each bead. These can be used for meditation, japa meditation, which is repetition of a mantra, or just breathing. You can run your fingers over each bead one by one until you make your way all the way around. And you've done 108 repetitions of breath or mantra. They have 108 beads. And I teach yoga to pretty much anyone who wants to learn. Like I said, my main message is like welcoming worthiness kind of thing. So if you're looking for a more like disciplined, regimented practice, that's not me. I really want people to feel like their flow state. I want people to feel like their own individuality. I want people to feel empowered to make decisions that feel supportive, if that means modifying the practice or advancing the practice. So that's kind of my approach to it. I teach outdoors at the park, I teach indoors at studios, and I teach at your home if you want me to. I also do kids yoga and chair yoga for older adults. And then my book, it's called Something in the Sunset Told Me I Miss You. It's a book of poetry. And this is a lot of it is inspired by love, nature, heartbreak, embodiment, yoga, travel. So a lot of my poems in there are gonna kind of visit those themes. So you'll feel when you're in nature, you'll feel when you're in movement, travel, like road trips have inspired some of the poems, and then a lot of just falling in love with others, falling in love with self, falling out of love, really just like universal themes that I think we can all relate to. And yeah, that's pretty much what I do.
Where can people find your book?
So my book, my website is shelbygyoga.com. There is a tab for shop, and you can find my book there. If you're local and you want to do local pickup, I often bring them to my yoga classes, or, a local pickup at a local location, or you can order online at my website, Shelby G Yoga. And then you can also find how to book my group classes, private classes, and everything there.
Awesome. And then you said the donation-based one is in Delray Beach?
Yes, Delray Beach at Veterans Park. It's on the intercoastal, so we get that nice breeze. And it is shaded. There's a big tree. So this time of year, that is key. But it gets more and more beautiful, obviously, as we ease into winter. And I feel like the best way to stay up to date with everything is Instagram, which is also Shelby G Yoga. That's where I'm always posting updates about workshops, classes, links to all my offerings, and lots of fun content too, like tutorials and funny reels and inspiring content. So you can follow me there as well.
Perfect. Well, this has been absolutely fabulous. I thank you so much for hanging out with me and taking some time out of your day. For those of you that resonated with Shelby and all the goodness that she shared today, be sure to connect with her social media website. Where do you hang out on social predominantly? On Facebook,
Instagram mostly. I do have Facebook, but I'm not as active on it. But everything is Shelby G Yoga.
Beautiful. So Instagram, Shelby G Yoga. And we'd love to connect people here on this platform in order to make sure we all continue to rise. Any closing thoughts as we wrap up?
You're worthy of self-care, even when you're busy, even when it feels like you don't have time. You're worthy of it, and you will thank yourself for it.
Well, that brings us to an end of yet another incredible episode of Her Talk Show. Thank you, Shelby, for sharing your wisdom and inspiring us all. To our dedicated listeners, thank you for staying with us until the very end. Remember to follow, like, and share. Once again, I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I invite you to join our amazing community, Her Nation, where we continue to uplift each other every step of the way. Until next time, do something